Hey guys, Mike with Old Iron, and we're going to try to make a little bit of headway and bump ahead a little bit on old Purple Haze here. Little victories. So, let me take you off of the tripod here and I'll show you exactly what we got going on and what we're going to try to accomplish today. Now, right now, the body's just sitting on the frame and nothing's bolted. You can move it back and forth. So, we actually need to take the body and we need to move it this way, probably about 2 inches. We need to center everything up and get everything where it's going to be so I can start taking measurements to start laying out this floor. So that's what we're going to try to accomplish today, maybe a few other small things. Now, the problem we have is the supports I had up in the front here, they weren't big enough to slide it this way. So I kind of repurposed these, and what we're going to do is we're going to mount them down here, let this piece set on the frame, and that way I can slide it back and forth. And then when I get it where I need it, or where I want it, both, I'll throw a couple tacks in it just to keep it from moving back and forth, and then I can start taking my measurements. Now, after going back and forth about a half dozen times, we're going to cut this 3.5 inches off here. We're going to keep it straight, and it's just going to go straight down instead of this stepping out crap. It'll be easier to fabricate, it'll be easier to clean up, and I think it'll look better anyway. So, we're going to get this out, get rid of all this crap that's hanging off, and we'll probably take these and cut them down too, even though I'm probably going to cut more of that. But the original body mounts, which were right here, what they did is they mounted them right in the body. I mean, literally. So, you know, that's what you're dealing with. So, when they dropped the body over the frame, they cut all this out. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of this here. And there's a flange right in here on the inside. I'm going to go from the flange down, which is 17.5 inches. I'm going to take off for the height of this stock because there's going to be a piece that runs down the rail, and this piece here will actually sit on top of it. So basically you'll have a square stock running down the frame, and the new body mount will actually sit on top of it, and that way it'll tie everything in a little nicer. Now it's going to bring the body up another inch, but like I was talking to my buddy, I really don't care because I got to build lower rockers all the way down this thing. If I got to build them another inch or two down to make it look right, so be it. It's a rat for one. Second off, it gives me the ability to adjust everything the way I need to adjust it. So that'll stiffen this up here on both sides. And we're going to run that square pipe, or that square tubing, up to right here, because after here we start going up. And luckily enough, the end of this flat spot is pretty much even with this. So we'll go up off of that and we'll frame out for our firewall, so we got support back there and the front of our trans tunnel. Once we get the body square, we'll have to square up our engine, make sure it's where we need to be so we know where our trans tunnel is going to be and where it's going to end. Because with the motor sitting as low as it's going to, the trans tunnel is not going to go all the way to the back. It'll probably end up stopping somewhere in this area here. So probably at the start of the B pillars, we'll be able to run a piece all the way across, and we'll have flat floor from there back. I'm hoping I could do it almost to this trans tunnel. We'll just have to see. I got to run the line and we got to get everything adjusted, but I got to get this body square first. So let's get started on that. All right, guys, we got the body squared up. We're 5 1/4 off the B pillars off of each side from the B pillar to the frame, and we're about 3/4 of an inch off of the A pillars to the frame on each side. So, and then I checked the back too, but I can't remember what the measurement was. So the body square with the frame. Now we got to get the motor squared up and figure out exactly where it's going to sit and the height it's going to sit. We'll get those measurements, mark everything. I did cut off the firewall, and I think, man, I think that looks a lot better than all that shit hanging out this way and little ears and all that stuff. So it came out pretty good. Looks good on both sides. I think it's just going to give it a much cleaner look. Now, I left this on here down here basically as a reference. I'm going to have to cut all that out and resheet it once I get everything built inside, because it's stupid to patch this and then cut out here and then patch down there, because the lake pipes are going to come out and they're going to be indented a little bit here, so I'm going to have to do some kind of a concave probably right down in here. I'm going to jerk this thing back and forth and see if we can't get it centered and squared up and where it needs to be. Double check it, triple check it. We'll get the measurements, and that way I can be done with this son of a bitch. It's just in the way. But I got to make sure my height's right and stuff like that and get all my measurements. And it's going to sit in here while we do the floor, just so we've got reference for the trans tunnel, because there is going to be a trans tunnel. Now, it won't be that bad. It'll start fading out about here. You know, because the tail end of the transmission is, half of the tail shaft is underneath the frame rails. And this is going up about another inch. The frame itself, the body itself is going up about another inch. That should get us where we need to be. So I'm going to get at this and we'll just get it going. All right, guys. Actually, got a lot done. Just don't look like it. And most of it wasn't video worthy. I've got some of the framing cut, well, measured and cut. And we got the motor centered. I got my measurements for the height and the width off the frame. I got the measurements on the tail shaft, height, and off each frame. I took a piece of flat stock and ran it down the frame. And then where the frame would change pitch, because I want the two long pieces are actually going to run right down the frame. And so I want to contour to the frame. So I've got all my measurements to where the angles change. And then I've got my degrees on the angles from the very front here all the way back. We're stopping, well, not stopping, but this section is going to stop basically right underneath that lip there on the frame rail, because then it goes flat. And we're going to have, once we get that in, we're going to cut all that out. And we're going to do the back piece, the trunk section. But we got all that done. I've got measurements galore on the hood. But we've got the uprights, the cross beam, and I got to figure out if I'm going to drop another cross beam or if I'm coming out and doing angles to. I'm not doing a round trans tunnel. It's going to be boxed. It's going to be angled on each side and kind of taper in. It's going to be flat on the top. I got to figure out those angles once I get this other framing in. And I'll need a piece from the piece that runs off the frame towards the transmission bell housing. And then from there, it'll go up, go over, go back down. You know what I mean? But that's what we got. I'm going to continue this video so we actually have some content. Tomorrow we'll work on bending the pieces that are running down the frame and hopefully get those done, and then we can start tacking some of this in, because some of it I need in place before I can get the other measurements I need, if that makes any sense. Once we get this in and get the firewall framed out, coming through here, I mean, we're going to have angle up against the body, and it's basically going to lay right on top of these pieces here. And all I got to do is measure from the angle to angle, cut a piece and drop it in, at least in this back section back here. And then once we get to right around the B pillar, I'm guessing that's where the trans tunnel is going to start. We're going to have to figure that out too before we get started. And then all this is going to have to be pieced in and triangulated for the trans tunnel. So we still got a lot of work to do, but little victories, guys, little victories. All right, guys, that's just about it for this episode. I know there really wasn't a lot of hands-on going on in the car. It was more thinking and figuring out. But I kind of look at it this way. If you're working on your car and just once you think back and you're like, yeah, remember that crazy old guy on YouTube? He said to do this. Video was worth it, man. We got a lot more coming up. We got to put the frame in this thing, and we'll start welding and tacking everything up, get some of the supports in, start working on the motor bracket or the front body brackets, get all that tied in, and then we'll start working on this front cowl supports in the trans tunnel. So we've got a lot more coming up, and we're going pretty steady on it. So hopefully we can get this thing at least out of the garage real soon so I can get some other work done. So please subscribe, follow along, and I appreciate every last one of you, and we will see you soon.